Evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? So, Craig, can you hear me?
Hi, Arsh. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Fantastic. Right. Okay. Let's get started. So, evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Arsh Ellahi. I'm here today with two colleagues, Craig Webb and Ben Bayliss. Hi, guys. How are you both? You well?
Very well, thank you, Arsh. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Good. Right. So, just want to say a quick shout out and thank you to everyone that's joined us this evening. We've got a few people joining us. We're live on Facebook as well. So, I really hope that people are enjoying it there too. So let's get moving forward. So what we're covering this evening, let's just quickly open up my slides so people can see us, what we're going to be talking about. And let's get moving on from there. So hopefully everyone can see my slides. So if you can, just give us a quick hello, give us a quick wave in the chat, in the Q&A, just let me know that you can hear me nice and loud and clearly. That'd be much appreciated. In the chat, if you want to give us a quick hi. In today's session, what we're going to be talking about is how you can actually achieve rent-to-rent success. So over the last couple of weeks, both, or should I say, Craig and Ben and I have been talking about the different kinds of deals that we've been doing with rent-to-rent and how we've acquired rent-to-rent deals. So whether it be through a letting agent, whether it be through direct-to-vendor. And tonight's session is going to be more of an interactive session. So asking the guys that are on the session, what are the issues that they're facing right now when it comes to rent, and do they believe that they can do this, and what are the obstacles that are coming across? So let's get started and let's get straight into it. So first of all, tonight's session is going to be very simple. We're going to be talking about what is rent to rent. We're going to be looking at breaking it down from the beginning so everyone understands what rent to rent looks like. We're going to be looking at, from a money point of view and from the financials point of view, how it works and the money it can generate, the cash flow that it can generate. We'll be looking at some case studies which we've been showcasing. I'm also going to ask Ben and Craig to also tell us about how some of the students that they've been working with over the last few months and what that has looked like for them and the impact that this has made on their property journey. And finally, we're going to be showing you about how you can work with us. So let's just go through who is the team. So first of all, my name's Arsh Ellahi. Quite a few of you may know who I am, or if you may or you may not, which is I'm happy either way. I'm a property investor. I've been investing in property over 24 years. I've built up a portfolio of over 1,000 tenants. I've taken on over 50 rent-to-rent properties. Believe it or not, this week alone, I've taken on 3. So I've taken on 1 in Birmingham. I've taken 2 on in Dudley, which are in the West Midlands, and they're all ready-made HMOs. I'll be talking to you about that shortly. I've also got a portfolio of 100 service accommodation units, which are across the country. And again, I'll give you a few examples of those throughout the session. I write in a couple of property publications, which are nationwide publications, which is YPN Magazine, HMO Magazine, and I've featured in Blue Bricks as well. I'm the founder of a podcast called The Property Rebel. We release a podcast every Tuesday at 6 a.m. Feel free to go and check it out. It's on all podcast stores. And then finally, one of my finer accolades is that I'm the founder of an app called the Property Investor app, which is the UK's first property investment platform, which showcases all kinds of deals all over the UK, whether it's a below market value deal, a rent-to-rent deal, a lease option deal. We've got them all there. Now, the best way to get involved is you can either go to the website by going to propertyinvestораpp.co.uk, or if you've got a smartphone, go to the App Store, type in Property Investor and download it from there. I should just remind you that we're going to be on screen for approximately 45 minutes to an hour, absolute max. So now is your opportunity to ask any questions. So I'm going to pass you over to Craig. So Craig, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi guys. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Craig Webb. I'm based in Warsaw. I've been investing in property now for around 7 years. I started off doing rent to rent, built a very successful rent to rent portfolio. Then I started to help train and guide other property entrepreneurs get started in their property journey, which is something I really enjoy doing, watching the success of new property entrepreneurs. And I'm also a deal sourcer. So I source, secure, and sell deals, specializing in rent to rent, BRRR, below market value, and lease option agreements. This year alone, I've actually, well, it says 27 deals, but we've actually done 3 deals this week. So that's now up to 30 so far this year. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben Bayliss and I'm actually based in Birmingham. I've been working together with Craig for approximately about 5 years now. I've actually been in property full time for the last 10 years. I started off with a rent to rent portfolio, which we built up using the serviced accommodation and the HMO models. And we've then gone on to do some other deals like BRRs and BMV purchases, as well as commercial conversions and other things like that. We've actually got over 100 HMO tenants, and that's based in Walsall, Wolverhampton, Birmingham, and Coventry. And I also source, secure, and sell deals to other investors. And of course, we teach people how to take control of properties, source them on, and make a profit for themselves as well. And that's me.
Okay, brilliant. So between the three of us this evening, we're going to be going through all the kind of strategies that you should be looking at. So I've got to ask a question. I asked this last week, and it's quite an interactive session. I'm hoping that we have the same this evening as well. So what is the one thing that's holding you back from building your rent-to-rent property portfolio? And feel free to put this in the chat. So you can look at this from a point of view of thinking, well, what is it that we're doing that is stopping us? So uh, is it that you don't have the finances to do it? Is it that you're not sure about how to do it? And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Don't mind saying that. You're If you're worried about the knowledge or you're worried about the legalities about it, there's nothing wrong with that, because we're going to be guiding you through that this evening. There could be all kinds of things. And what I want to try and ask you is that what would £5,000 per month do for you? So if I was to say that this skill or this strategy allows you to build a portfolio or gets you up to £5,000 per month very quickly, what would that £5,000 a month do for you and your family? Would it allow you to quit your job? Now, it's Sunday evening. I appreciate that Sunday evenings, some people have this Monday morning dread. And when we talk about that, people think, well, don't want to go into work, or they've had a great weekend. But would £5,000 a month allow you to quit your job? Would it allow you to then focus on your property business so that we can then start taking you from 5,000 to 10,000? Would it allow you to build your portfolio? Would it allow you to offer you more choices? And with choices comes freedom, holidays, time with your family, and it allows you to choose when to work and with who to work. Now, put in the comments box, because again, it only works if this is an interactive session. Do you believe me if I said that this can actually be achieved within 12 weeks? Now, think where we are. We're in the middle of April. So fast forward 12 weeks, we're going to be going into May, June, July. So we're going to be hitting pretty much peak of summer. So if I said that by summertime, you could be achieving £5,000 per month from a property portfolio that you don't own, do you believe that's doable? Again, if you're concerned about it, or if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box or in the chat box. So I'm going to pass you over to Ben, because Ben's going to tell you a little bit about what is rent to rent. So Ben, what I'd like you to do here is just give you a bit of experience about some of the rent to rent deals that you've done recently, whether it be through an owner or the agent, and more importantly, what was the driving force behind the owner or the agent to do this deal with you, as opposed to give the property out to a normal family, as this traditional model would lend itself to?
Sure. Well, we've done quite a few deals recently, so it'll be easy to pick and choose a couple of them that we've done. So what we do, in essence, is we take a property and we take it on a long-term contract from the owner. So an owner will usually be renting their property out, say if it was to a family, on a 6 month or a 12-month AST. And we're not doing that. What we're doing is we're taking the property on a commercial lease. And we're trying to get, to be honest, normally as long as possible for us to make as much profit as possible during the term. So we normally try for 3 years or 5 years if we can get away with it. So what we do then is we take the property off the owner and we make any changes that are needed to the property. And that could be decorating, it could be furnishing and things like that. And then we then sublet the property to our tenants. So if it was a multi-let, we could take a house, we could cut it up into different units or change it into different units and then rent those units out individually. And of course, we're going to be renting them out for a premium price for a few reasons. One, because we're renting them out individually, you can rent them out for a higher price. And secondly, because we're making improvements to the property. Like I say, it could be decorating, it could be putting some nice furniture or furnishings in the property. So we're able to charge a higher rent than the landlord could have charged in the first place. And that's how we're making profit on these deals. That's the HMO model.
Okay, so
The other model,
what about the service accommodation model? Because I appreciate that some people may not know too much about the service accommodation model. I know that the HMO model has been quite well documented, but tell us a little bit about the service accommodation model and what that looks like as a model itself.
sure. Well, the SA model or serviced accommodation or serviced apartment model, as it's known, is basically what you know as Airbnb. So what we do is we take a property, we pay the landlord a monthly rent. Again, we furnish the property, we decorate it nicely, we put nice soft furnishings in there, and then we rent it out on a weekly, a nightly, a monthly, or whatever term basis you want to a third party. So that could be renting a house for £1,000, for example, from the owner. We pay all the bills, and then we could be renting out for 130 or £150 per night to our clients on the other end. Again, there's a lot of profit to be made in these types of deals. On these deals, we obviously take care of the property. We clean the property. We replace the linen. We provide services such as coffee machines and things like that, bottles of water. We normally have them furnished to a really good standard, with TVs, with Netflix, And the nicer you make the place, the more you can charge nightly. So it's a really good way of taking control of the property without having to own it and then making a monthly profit from the property.
Okay, so that's give you a brief overview. We're going to go into that in greater detail in a minute, and we're going to give you some examples as to how this actually works. So let's just dispel one of the myths, because I know that when we did this last week, this was actually quite a hit with the guys that are on the session. So first of all, one of the things that people always say is that, Arsh, isn't this subletting, and is subletting illegal? Now, first of all, subletting is not illegal. However, it needs to be put in context because it all comes down to the agreements that you have in place. Now, if you've got a standard residential tenant in place and you've got a standard AST agreement, which is assured short-hold tenancy, and you're then renting it out to someone else without the knowledge of the property owner, this could be considered against the terms of the lease. However, when you're doing rent to rent, what the key here is to ensure that the owner or the agent, depending on who you're taking the property from, is fully aware that you have no intention of living in it yourself, but you will be renting it out to other people who you find for that property. And as a result, the agent or the owner will allow you to sublet that property. So not only are you renting it off the owner, but then you have the further permissions to rent the property on to other tenants. And providing that has been all agreed and it is documented within the documents that within the lease or the agreement that you have with the owner, then it is not illegal. So I just wanted to be 100% certain with that. And I'm going to say that, believe it or not, I don't mind saying this, and hopefully I don't offend both Craig and Ben, that, we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. We're not Albert Einstein. We are literally basically saying it's not a new business model. And the reason why I say that is because, let's face it, rent to rent has been around a number of years. That agents have been doing it a number of years. The local authority have been doing it a number of years. How many times have you heard of your local authority, your council coming to you and saying, guys, we need more properties. Would you rent your property to us so that we can now put our homeless tenants into your properties? In actual fact, they're doing exactly the same. They're offering you, the only difference is that their rents that they will offer you is far lower than what potentially someone else could offer you. So we're talking about you don't have to buy the property to make money from it. You don't need huge deposits, and you don't need a mortgage to get started. And what we are actually talking about is controlling the asset rather than owning it and creating wildly profitable businesses. Now, the reason why I say that is because in the world of business right now, there's a big emphasis on control. And when you look at some of the largest businesses in the world, and probably the most successful businesses in the world, they all work on control. So when we look at Uber, we all know who Uber is. We've probably all used an Uber recently. And one of the biggest things, obviously, is Uber Eats. Now, Uber, the world's largest taxi firm, owns no cars. Uber Eats actually owns no restaurants. They're a facilitator of a service. Facebook, the world's most popular media company, creates no content. They're reliant on people like you and I to create the content. Now, Airbnb, which we're all familiar with, is the world's largest accommodation provider and actually owns no property. So we're not the first people to try and do this, and we won't be the last. And when you think of more businesses like this, believe it or not, when you go on holiday, the aeroplane that you sit in generally won't actually be owned by the airline company. They probably would have leased that fleet of planes from someone else. And then they've sold those seats to you, and they're making the money in the middle. The same with trains. And you can talk about all these different types of businesses. And just give you an example, if you've rented a hire car recently, they don't own all those cars. They've probably got them on a lease from the company, and then they're renting it out to you. So when you think of all these different types of businesses, they all work on the basis and the premise of control. Now, I'm going to pass you over to Craig, and Craig's going to now talk to you about a couple of problems and solutions where he's come across an owner, and he's going to tell us what the problem was. And as a result of the negotiation that Craig had done, he's going to tell you what solution they come up with, which created a real win-win scenario.
Sure, yes. Well, a certain landlord that I've been working with in Warsaw, he was struggling, as it says there, there's a problem and there's a solution. So the landlord reached out to me, someone I'd spoke to a long time ago. He reached out to me and said, Craig, I'm thinking about taking you up on this offer. Do you mind meeting up and having a chat? So I said, yeah, no problem. And his problem was he was attracting very low paying clients this was a HMO property, by the way, a 5-bedroom HMO, and they were paying through benefits, and his property was getting trashed. He'd got people drinking in there, smoking weed in there, and that type of thing. And I simply said, look, if we take this property on, we're going to give it a lick of paint, we're going to make the property look nice, we're going to put some better furniture in the property, and we're going to put this out to the higher paying working professional clients where we can fetch higher rents and make higher profits. But as what we needed to negotiate then was we're going to be spending a little bit of time, a little bit of money. So we wanted a minimum of 4 weeks rent-free so we can get all these jobs done, get the property advertised, and get this put out to our higher paying clients. And because he'd had so many problems for so long, that then gave us more room to negotiate a better deal on the rent. So we managed to get it at a lower rent than he initially wanted, so we could make higher profits. And then we simply gave it a lick of paint, done the bedrooms up a little bit. We don't go too mad with the property, but we then attract higher paying clients, working professional clients that tend to pay the rent on time every time. They don't cause problems because they've been working all day. They simply want to come home, eat the dinner, watch a bit of TV, and go to bed. And we come across these types of deals not just with landlords but with agents as well. Another agent in Birmingham that we were working with, it was a small independent agent. He'd got loads of property deals coming through, but he didn't like working with HMOs. He specialised in single let properties. So again, we reached out to him, gave it a few weeks, and then he reached back out to us, and we started doing deals with him. He simply didn't like working with HMO properties because a lot of agents, they only work with single let properties. So yeah, we come across these types of deals all the time, all over the country.
Okay, so if we go that one step further now, so from a letting agent point of view, so let's just go this here. So what are the key things that landlords are worried about? What are the key things? Why would a landlord give us this property?
Oh, sorry, Arsh, I thought you were asking that to the group then. Yeah, well, landlords obviously their main concern is they want to pay their mortgage. They've got the interest rates, mortgages are going through the roof. But all in all, they want to pay, they want to get their rent, and they're looking for long-term growth on their property, so the money goes up in value over time. And a lot of landlords get involved with HMO properties because obviously they hear they can make more money, etc. But working with HMO properties, it's different to working with single let properties. So they get involved in it, and then it feels like it's too much hard work for them. They want a simple let and forget property. So then they start putting it out to agents, and then they have to deal with agents that again aren't used to working with HMO properties, and the rooms don't get rented out as the agents have promised they will, which is great for us then, because that's when they reach out to us and we take on the properties. The landlord gets their rent, their mortgage gets paid, and we make the profit in between, and it works really, really well.
Okay, so what's the benefits to obviously the owner?
Yeah, well, obviously they don't have to advertise the property to find tenants. That's something we take on, that responsibility. They're going to get their rent guaranteed every month for the next 3 to 5 years. They don't have to deal with the tenants then. They don't have to set up the tenancy agreements, start doing the viewings and showing the tenants around the properties, etc. And again, like I just mentioned, with traditional letting agents, when working with HMO properties, this can be a nightmare because some traditional agents, again, like I've already said, they're not used to working with these types of properties, so they don't know how to attract the right type of clients. And that's another concern they haven't got. And then again, the legal obligations of the client, of the tenant, they don't have to worry about that anymore. And like I've already mentioned, void periods, that's our problem. We do our due diligence first, so we know the property is going to do well. However, the landlord, he doesn't have to worry about this anymore because his or her rent's paid guaranteed. Call outs for repairs or call outs for problems if there's a dispute in the property. This is another problem that we take away from the landlord. We take care of all of this. So this becomes a very attractive offer to the landlord. And repairs, we have a power team in place. So we've got people that we can call and our tenants can call if there's an issue like a leaky tap or washing machine probably not working properly or something. We have a power team of people, so we can send someone out to get that issue fixed. And again, so the landlord just sits back, takes his or her money, and we take care of everything else. But as a result of that, we make great profit in doing so.
Okay, so I suppose I'm going to ask this to Ben now. So what's the benefits to the investor? So the person taking this property on, why would they want to take on a property like this? There's a question that's come in anonymously. It says, but what do the numbers look like? Not a single example provided, including how much the initial costs are. So don't worry, because we're going to be going through those. But why don't you tell us, Ben, what's the rationale behind someone wanting to take a property on like this?
Yeah, I mean, as we've mentioned, what this strategy encompasses is getting creative and taking control of properties without actually having to own them. So we don't have to put down a large deposit. So if you were to buy a buy-to-let property, you have to put down 25% deposit. If it's £100,000, that's £25,000 down plus legal fees. There's no need to get a mortgage. So a lot of people who come into rent to rent, they might have bad credit, they might have a bad credit history or just no credit history. So they couldn't get a mortgage even if they wanted to. Maybe they're a brand new company just set up. Again, difficult to get a mortgage. So that wouldn't be needed. We don't require solicitors. We do all the negotiation and all the contracts directly with the landlord or agent. Again, that's more money saved. We can do these deals within minutes. We go out to the property, we see the landlord, we see the agent, we discuss the terms, send over a quick email to just confirm everything, and the deal's done. We can get the keys usually within a couple of days, depending on what checks are needed from the landlord or agent. We negotiate all the terms. So what we do is we say, as Craig mentioned earlier, right, we're after a rent-free period. So that would be something where we're going to take the keys today and we're going to pay for the property in, say, 4 weeks' time because this needs doing and that needs doing, bit of decorating, maybe it needs new carpets, maybe it needs a bit of TLC. That's where we get our rent-free periods negotiated. We do break clauses. So what we do is we say, listen, if it's not working within the first 6 or 12 months, whatever you can negotiate, we could just call it quits and give the keys back. So you haven't got that ongoing 20-year mortgage to worry about or whatever it may be. We could build cash flow instantly. And what I mean by that is if we get a 4-week rent-free period, we manage to do all the work within 2 weeks and get the rooms rented out. That means we're starting to actually take rent in before we've even paid any rent out. And again, that's something we go through in a bit more detail. Again, we can scale up quickly. So you could have a starting pot of money. You get your first property, you've spent a bit of money on the rent, on the deposit, a bit of refurb. You can recoup that money quite quickly in order to get that pot of money and take it and put it onto another property and go again and again and again. So these are all benefits that we have as investors using this strategy to build up our portfolio.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly. So, one of the questions that always comes up on these sessions. So, where can we find owners? Because believe it or not, owners come from all different shapes and sizes. And I think sometimes that we kind of get our heads tangled around where can we find them. So, first of all, I don't mind saying that this week I found 2 rent-to-rent deals, and these are the properties that I'm going to retain for my portfolio. Because I found these, believe it or not, on Facebook. I found these in a group where an owner said that he lives abroad and he's just taken on some properties. And I simply messaged him and said, guys, okay, I understand that you're abroad. You told us that. What's your intention? Are you looking at managing them? You're going to give them out to a managing agent? And the owner actually said to me, he goes, Arsh, we're going to give them out to a managing agent. I said, well, could I offer you a solution where I can rent it off you on a long-term basis? And he goes, well, what does that look like? And so I went through some of the figures with him. And believe it or not, yes, he'd probably be making a little less money than if he went through and rented the properties himself directly through an agent. But once you factor in the time, the headache, the management, and what it actually gives him in terms of freedom, these guys are actually based abroad in Hong Kong. So they haven't got they won't have to have agents calling them every, couple of days. They won't be calling them every couple of days. And as a result, saying, oh, this has happened, that's happened. They won't hear from us for pretty much the whole of the 7-year period because we'll pay their rent on the first of every month. And it works extremely seamlessly. And we've been doing this for a number of years with a number of different landlords all over the country. We also work directly with letting agents because letting agents, remember what their model is. Their model is that they will need properties to be let out to be generating commissions. Now, if we can find agents that can work with us, and we do on a daily basis, then agents are going to have pretty much a hassle-free income, and it works really well. Now, for those that do know and those that don't know, there are things like HMO registers, planning registers. There are websites like Spare Room, Gumtree, Open Rent. There's Facebook Marketplace. Again, you've got other social platforms like Instagram, you've got TikTok, you've got LinkedIn, and these are all platforms where you'll be able to find people who own properties. And as a result, you put forward what you consider is your offer. And off the back of that, you see how many actually leads come through. And everything that I've put on the screen right there is actually free marketing. So it's not going to cost you anything to go out and generate these leads. And the one thing that I'm going to say is that, for argument's sake, you don't need to take on every property. You could sell it on as a rent-to-rent deal, and you could monetize every lead. Now, the reason why I say that is because let's just imagine we've got Winston that's on the webinar. And just imagine that Winston, he goes, he's just talked about Wolverhampton. I'll come back to your question in a second, Winston. He's talked about Wolverhampton. Just imagine that Winston's based in Wolverhampton, but he finds a landlord that's got a rent-to-rent property, I don't know, let's just say in Hull. Now, if Winston thinks, well, yes, I want to take on properties, but Hull is a little bit too far out my area. Now, what I would be saying to Winston is don't give up on that, because if you negotiate the deal and you get a great deal negotiated, you can then sell that deal as a package deal onto another property investor, someone that actually has an interest in Hull. So what we always say is monetize every lead. So Winston says, any feedback in relation to properties within Article 4 areas? I speak about Wolverhampton as a whole, where planning permission is required. So, okay, so Article 4 is a completely different topic, completely, because we could spend an hour easily just covering what Article 4 is. So there are some red tape areas, such as we need to concentrate on Article 4. We could talk about licensed versus unlicensed HMOs. And in those scenarios, you can't really take on a single let with a view of converting it into a multi-let. And the reason why I say that is because you don't know whether planning permission is going to be granted. And to go through the whole process of planning permission for a property that you don't own, I think is probably way above and beyond for what you should be doing. More importantly, during that period that you go through planning permission, you're going to be paying rent for that. And if there's no guaranteed success of planning permission to be granted, you could find yourself that you've spent a load of money on someone's property without actually being able to use it. So generally, in Article 4 areas, the short answer to your question is that I only take on ready-made, underperforming properties in Article 4 areas. I hope that kind of answers your question in some detail. So we've got lots of questions. Okay, so one easy question that's coming. Where can we sell on deals we don't want for ourselves? That's very simple. We've got this platform called the Property Investor app. So the Property Investor app, we've got over 50,000 investors on there. We can sell your deals that you don't want for yourselves onto our platform. That's quite easy. So if you don't know about the Property Investor app, you go to propertyinvestораpp.co.uk, or if you've got a smartphone, go to the App Store, type in Property Investor and download it from there. Now, I've put this image on the screen, and as we all know, it's Monopoly. And what I like to think is that with rent to rent, you play the game without the risk. And the reason why I say we play the game without the risk is because, as Ben previously said, we can actually create our cash flow model and go through the whole process. So we can identify how many rooms do we need to break even? How many months is it going to take us to break even? More importantly, we can even put in breakout clauses, or let's say break clauses, to avoid us having to lose money on a deal. Now, just give you an example of that. Just imagine that you buy a property. Now, in order for you to get out of that property, you have to sell the property, which means that you have to put it on with an estate agent or an auction company. How long is it going to take to sell? No one ever knows. Could take 2 months, could take 4 months, could take 12 months. With the break clause, you can come out within 1, 3, or 5 months, depending on what you negotiate. Now, the key thing here is that everything with rent to rent is all subject to negotiation. So you can negotiate the rent level, you can negotiate the deposit level, you can negotiate the rent-free period, you can negotiate the break clauses. They're the 4 main things that you need to negotiate when it comes to rent to rent. Now, When you purchase a property, you can't do any of that. You can't negotiate what the interest level is going to be because that's set by the mortgage company. You can't negotiate how much the mortgage payment is going to be because that's set by the mortgage company. You can't negotiate any break clauses because, again, the mortgage company has the main control over that asset. And again, if you want to try and break or if you want to try and come out of that property, you have to sell the property. Now, there's a different change in mindset. Now, because we rent to rent, yes, you don't own the asset, but you control the asset. Now, the way that I think about this is that in order for me to get involved, I don't need to put down deposits and go through the mortgage process. So I'm going to save myself a lot of money. But if I was to buy property, my commitment would be to the mortgage company. Here, I changed my mindset to say that my commitment now is to the landlord. And it's pretty much the same. You treat the property as if you own it. You treat the property in the same respect as if you own it. And you can also, taking this one step further, you can also possibly put in things like option to purchase in there, which then takes the property up to what is considered a lease option. Again, a different strategy. So we're going to talk about how to profit from rent to rent. So here's a very simple example. You take a single family let and you convert it into a HMO. Now, as a standard single let, 4-bedroom house, 2 reception rooms, as a family home, the traditional rent would be around £1,000 a month. Now, just imagine that you rented that property off the landlord at £1,000 a month. You go off and convert the property into a 5-bed HMO because it's got 4 bedrooms and 2 reception rooms. You utilize one of the reception rooms. Now, based on £600 per room, 5 rooms let out, that means that you're now generating an income of £3,000 per month. Now, once you've taken out the rent that you pay to the owner, once you've taken out the utility bills that you've paid, so it could be the council tax, water rates, electricity, gas, broadband, cleaners, HMO license fee, gas safety certificate, etc., you could be left with cash flow between £1,000 to £1,500 a month. And so if you've structured that over, let's just work on very simple numbers at £1,000 a month. If you've got that property on a 3-year term, that means that that property over that span of 3 years is going to generate you, if it's fully occupied, £36,000 for property that you don't own. But again, we can talk about this all, about different deals that we've done over the country. Here's a deal that actually Craig has done. And this is a property in Coventry. Craig, do you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, sure. So this is a 5-bedroom HMO in Coventry. And I actually sourced this deal through a letting agent. Again, it was a small independent letting agent. Managed to get it on a 3-year deal. Brilliant property, fully furnished, dressed to a very high standard, all ensuite bathrooms, fully licensed property. And it was cash flowing after all the bills had been paid, £700 per month. Bearing in mind, this property was ready to literally sign the contract, get the keys, and start getting the tenants in there. We also got a month's rent-free period, so we can start putting this out to our potential tenants, doing viewings and collecting money. So over a 12-month period, that was cash flowing around £8,400 per year. And over the 3-year deal, just over £25,000. So from a property that you don't own, £25,000 over 3 years, I think is great, especially considering we didn't have to do any work whatsoever. We literally signed the contract, got the keys, and got the tenants in there. And as you can see from the pictures here, the TV's on the wall, desks are all in the rooms, the beds are dressed. It's literally, this property was ready to go. And the great thing with this agent, at first, when we first spoke to him and told him our model, he was a little bit skeptical, a little bit apprehensive. But once he'd done business with us and we come good on our promise, we delivered on what we said we were going to deliver on. Within a couple of weeks, he was giving us another deal and another deal and another deal. We didn't take all the deals on. We also sell them as well, as Arsh mentioned a few minutes ago, and we've sold quite a few of these deals through the Property Investors app, and they literally get snapped up within a day or two. Yeah, and this is why I love working with agents. They get an abundance of deals coming through their over their desk, literally week in, week out. If you come good on your promise, they'll keep coming to you. We take the best deals for ourselves, not always necessarily the best ones. We take the deals that we want. And if something doesn't quite fit our requirements, as Arsh was saying, we package it up, we sell it on, and we make great money from that as well.
Okay, so Craig's just give us an example of how it looks like from a HMO point of view. Now, as a service accommodation, this method focuses on a nightly rentals of the whole unit rather than dividing the property into individual rooms. So just give me an example. A two-bedroom flat may rent out for £1,000 a month, but if you were to put it on Airbnb, for example, you've got other websites like booking.com, you've got Expedia, you've got so many different, you've got VRBO, you've got so many different platforms that you can put it on. And just imagine that you rented it out or you were attracting bookings at £50 per night. That could generate you more income to equivalent to, let's say, £1,500 a month. But out of that, you may need to factor in costs like utilities, booking fees, cleaners, linen, and other bits. Because as you're going to appreciate, if a guest goes in yesterday, you have to get it cleaned today. You have to get the bed sheets. You wouldn't want to go and sleep in another room knowing that it's not being cleaned. So as a result, you need to make sure that it's turned around and it's ready to go for the next guest. Now, I'm going to give you an example. This is my block of apartments. I've took them off the owner on a 3-year deal. So there's 7 apartments in total. I took them on a 3-year deal. I paid no deposit. I negotiated a 3-month rent-free period. The way that I managed to do that is that I spoke to the landlord whilst he was developing the property. And as a result, we're able to tailor the way that he developed the property specifically for what we needed it for service accommodation. So the furnishings and everything was there for what we needed it. And they continue to ensure and maintain the structure. So as you can see, brand new apartments, laminated flooring, brand new kitchens, done out to a fantastic spec. And based on my calculations, we were working on £130 a night, which is much lower than the competition. And even then, the break even was circa around 50% once you've factored, taken into consideration high management costs of 20%, high fees and contingency costs. And even then, it still generates over £2,000 a month, £24,000 per year. Now, if we increase the rate in line with the competition, that would actually decrease our break-even point to 40% and the cash flow increases significantly. Now, here's another property. Now, the reason why I'm giving you different locations is to show you that this actually works all over the country. I know that we've got quite a few questions popping up, so I'll try and answer these as we go along. So Duncan Street, Manchester, this is my block of apartments. We've got a block of 10 apartments in Manchester. We agreed a 5-year deal on a rent-to-rent basis with this landlady. She paid for all the conversion works. Now, the reason why I say that is because this property was poorly managed, completely run down. And I said to the landlady is that in actual fact, for me to take this on a 5-year deal doesn't actually make sense because the amount of money that I was going to have to put into it is nearly the best part of £100,000 because the property was absolutely trashed. The landlady said, well, would you still take the property on if I did the work or if I gave you the money to do the work? And that's exactly what happened. So she paid for the work. I got my workforce, my build force to actually go in and do the work. Within that, we managed to get a 3-month rent-free period. We converted the property into 10 HMO studio models, and we use these now as service accommodation. And it produces approximate cash flow of around £6,000 a month. And none of my own money was used on this deal. Now, you're not all going to get deals like this. And I don't mind saying that but when they do come along, you've got to grab it with both hands. Now, again, another deal, Milton Keynes. So when people are saying, oh, does this only work in the Midlands and the North? No, it doesn't. It works all over the country. Milton Keynes is down in the South. The single let rate is £950 a month for a two-bed apartment. Now, we set this at a 3-night minimum at £150 per night, and the current occupancy rate is 82%. Now, based on 82%, and let's just work on 80% there, the actual income is 3,192. Now, remember, the rent to the owner is 950. So we're making a significant amount of cash flow from a property that we don't own. And again, here's another property in Birmingham. So this is based in the Midlands, very similar. But the difference between this and the one in Milton Keynes is that, yes, the single let rate is the same. The nightly rate is approximately the same between Birmingham and Milton Keynes. But we actually let this to a corporate tenant who had workers coming to work in this area. So just so you know, I've got service apartments in Cornwall, Wolverhampton, Birmingham, Manchester, Nottingham, Liverpool, and in Blackpool. And in Blackpool, we get lots of corporate staff who are doing work, let's say work on the roads. So, you know, the the workers that work on the motorways, etc., and the railways. We get their companies come and rent multiple apartments off us because it's cheaper for them to come and stay in our apartments than it is to stay in like a travel lodge. And not only that, they've got a full serviced apartment so that they can cook their own foods, etc. And they'll rent it off us for 2, 3, 4 months at a time. So it's 100% occupied for 4 months at a time. And the cash flow that it generates when you get a corporate let is phenomenal. And these come out all the time. So remember what today's session is all about: control rather than ownership. Now, why are we telling you all this? It's very simple. We've got a Q&A session that's coming up in a second, so stay with us. Okay. So on the 21st and the 20th and 21st of April, which is next weekend, believe it or not, myself, Craig, and Ben are running a 2-day workshop. Now, you've either got two options. You can either attend in person, which is either our preference, or you can actually join us on Zoom. And as a result, you can join us. And in that workshop, we will be going through the whole process as to what you should be doing to get your first deal and get you to £5,000 a month in the first 12 weeks. So, Ben, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be teaching you how to be innovative and how to take control of properties and make money from them. That's the simplest way of putting it. There's a booking now link that we're going to pick up and we're going to put it into the chat so people can click on it. We're going to do that now. What we're going to do on the 2-day live event, we're going to be taking you step by step through all the processes that you need to do in order to set up your business, start contacting agents, landlords, and everything else, teach you how to find and analyze the deals. We're going to give you our deal analyzers. So it's really simple. You just put the information in from Rightmove or from wherever, and it will tell you, the potential profit the other side. We're going to give you our scripts. That's not a script, like we're in a theater. It's a script where you can follow the pattern of wording. So it's really easy for you to close deals. We'll tell you the right questions and the wrong questions that you need to ask landlords and agents in order to get the right answers that we want. We're going to teach you how to approach and how to call agents. We're going to actually do live calls on the day in front of you so we can show you how it works live. Can we just go to the next one, please, Arsh? We're going to enjoy the 2 days together and we're going to work with you one-on-one in groups, different strategies. So if you're looking more into HMOs, we're going to work more on the HMOs. People who are looking more at service accommodation, we're going to work on service accommodation. You're going to come out at the end of the 2 days with all the knowledge you need to be able to go out, grab a deal, take it on, or sell it, whatever you want to do. We're going to be going through all the systems and the support that you need to carry on and do it yourself. We're going to give you all the templates that we use, like the contracts and the leases and stuff like that. We're going to show you live calls. We've already talked about live calls. We're going to teach you how to research the properties. Again, how we're going to go into the deal analyzers. We're going to talk to you about the different legislation that's involved, and the obligations and the responsibilities you will have as a business owner and as a landlord. And most importantly, we're going to give you the support you need to be able to go out after the course and do it yourself. Yeah, it's everyone at the end of this course is going to be able to go out and take control of properties and start earning money straight away. We're also going to give you the Facebook group, which is a community support group where you can talk to each other, ask questions. This is after support. We're going to give you our numbers, our personal numbers, me and Craig. So we're going to contact you and you're going to contact us after the course. So we can give you the after support that you need to get your business up and running. And we're going to support you to get your first deal up and running and over the line into the future as well.
Okay, so that's everything that we're going to be covering. So just as a recap, we're going to be going through, it's a 2-day course. It's on the 20th and 21st of April. It's going to be in Wolverhampton. So for people that can attend, it's going to be in Wolverhampton. For those that can't attend, it's going to be on Zoom. So you're still going to be getting all the support as you were if you were in the room. The cost for the Zoom and the course is $995 per person. I am going to put this out there for those that book this evening, is that anyone that's got a business partner or a marital partner, you can bring them along for free. So there you would get 2 for the price of 1, but that's only for a business partner or a marital partner. And on there, we're going to be covering everything to do with the systems. So how to find your area, how to negotiate, how to research that area, how to actually make sure that that area actually makes money. So looking at it from an operational point of view, having a look at how to actually acquire that property, how to approach the landlord, how to approach the agent, how to make sure that they understand what your offer looks like. And the aim is to get you to your first deal, and the plan will be to try and get you to your first £5,000 within 12 weeks. But you've got to follow us on a step-by-step process. And on top of that, you're going to have all the after support from Craig and Ben via the online Facebook community group, which is called Rent to Success. So I asked you at the first part of this webinar, what does £5,000 a month do for you? Now, realistically, I want you all to say it's going to allow you to be free, because it's going to allow you to quit your job. It's going to allow you to focus on your property business. It's going to allow you to build your portfolio. It's going to allow you to spend more time with your loved ones and allow you to actually just do what you want to do. So just as a recap, 20th and 21st of April, we've got lots of questions that are coming through. If there are any questions, now's your time to put them into the Q&A box. And let's have a look at what they say. So one of the questions comes in and it says, who is responsible for repairs? So if there's a problem with the roof causing damp, issues with interior decoration, roof needed, tenants wanted to terminate the contract, etc., how do you avoid the risk of having committed the rent to the property from a landlord, then struggling to find a tenant? Okay, so we've got 2 different questions there. So remember, with rent to rent, everything is all subject to negotiation. So remember what I said, when you buy a property, you don't really have that negotiation tactic, because the mortgage company actually tells you what you can and can't do. Now, with rent to rent, you can actually negotiate all the terms with the owner. So who's responsible for what? So generally speaking, when I take on a property, I'm generally responsible for anything internally, and the owner would be responsible for anything externally. So in your example where you've said about the roof, generally that would be the owner's responsibility. And generally things that go wrong with the roof would then really be covered under buildings insurance, which they would then have in place. So how do you avoid the risk of being committed to rent from the property and then struggling to find a tenant? Now, let me ask you the same question. If you buy the property, what happens if you don't rent the property out? Can you go back to the mortgage company and say, guys, we've not rented out this month. Can you give us a holiday? They're going to say no. So in the same way, when you take this property off the owner, you've got to be there pretty certain that you're going to be able to rent this property out. Now, there are lots of ways that you can do that, and you can make sure that you've got things in place to ensure that this property is going to get occupied. And these are things that we're going to cover from a systems point of view and a research point of view on the 20th and 21st of April. So I really hope that's answered. So who pays for damaged items? So Mark has asked, who pays for damaged items? Depends on the damage. So if it's anything internally, and more importantly, if it's anything to do with your tenants, generally speaking, you would be responsible, Mark. But again, put yourself in the position of, let's just say, the mortgage company, if you were to buy the property. If you had tenants in the property and they damaged your property, could you go to the mortgage company and say, let Lloyds, unfortunately, one of my tenants has damaged the property. Can you give us a payment holiday? They're going to tell you to get lost. So in the same scenario, the owner is going to say, it's not my responsibility. The owner wants a hassle-free transaction. If you're constantly calling them and saying, this has gone wrong and that's gone wrong, you're not really doing what you set out from the outset. So, an anonymous question. Hi, normally, how long can a newbie in rent-to-rent acquire a property? How much in average to spend on a property? Thank you. So, Craig or Ben, which one of you want to answer that?
Yeah, sorry, Arsh, the question was how long to acquire a property, was it, and how much do you need
How
to
long would it
spend?
how long would it take for if someone's completely new to rent, how long would it take them to acquire a property?
Yeah, well, that depends really on how much effort and how much work you're prepared to put in. I mean, I think when I first got into rent to rent, I think it took around 4 weeks, which is really quick, but I worked my absolute socks off. But that was to actually get a property and take on the keys. Now, if you're looking to secure a deal to sell, you can literally get this done in a couple of days as long as you have done the education, you've done your research, and you've put yourself out there making the calls. You can secure a deal within a few days, and you can acquire a property within a couple of weeks as long as you're prepared to put in the hard work, make those calls, send those emails, and do the negotiation. And with regards to how much money you need to put into a deal, again, that depends on the negotiations. Like Arsh was saying, everything is subject to negotiation with rent to rent, which is one of the things we love about it. So some deals, you don't need to put any money in at all. They come fully furnished, fully dressed, really nicely decorated, and we get a month's or sometimes 2 months rent-free period. But some properties, they may require £3,000 to £5,000, but we've got ways where we recoup this money back very fast, normally within the first 1 to 2 months. But again, that's all down to negotiation.
Okay, so Jane has said, just wonder why the vendor doesn't let the letting agent manage the existing HMO, but you. Okay, so great question, Jane, because believe it or not, lots of reasons why owners will give us their property as opposed to give it to traditional letting agent. First of all, when they give it to a traditional letting agent, they're still responsible for things like voids, maintenance, bad debt. Yeah, and maintenance is a big one. So even though they give it to a letting agent, the letting agent will still contact the owner and say, oh, this tenant's left, he's not paid the rent, or, this toilet's broken. What do you want to do? How do we move forward with this? Um, so, just because they give it to an agent doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a complete hands-off transaction. So by giving it to a company, they can literally not have to worry for the next 7 years. With a letting agent, you don't have that form of agreement. So I really hope that kind of answers your question. So Matt has asked the question. So do we pay a deposit or can we put insurance in place to reduce the initial investment cost? How would you approach that scenario? So Ben, Craig, have any of you ever put the deposit insurance in place?
Yep, I've used deposit insurance quite a few times. Obviously, being a new company, you might not be eligible to do that. So insurance is basically the company saying to you, we trust you as a person, uh, so we're going to insure you. It's insurance. So if you're a brand new company, you might not be eligible, but hopefully, within time, when you've built up, some reputation as a company, you will be able to get deposit insurance, or go the other way, where you say to the landlord or the agent, listen, we actually don't need to put a deposit down because we're actually going to be improving the property. So therefore, why would we need to put a deposit down? Because deposit is surely against damage. The property is already trashed. We're going to be improving it. There's no need for a deposit in this instance.
Okay, so that's a great answer. And then Gareth has asked, there's some great numbers once the deal is secured, but how much is the initial cost? How much money do I need to actually start? Now, Gareth, this all depends on a number of things. It depends on the standard of the property that you're taking on. It's whether the property is already furnished or whether it's unfurnished, whether it's already HMO or whether it's a single let. Or it depends on whether the HMO license in place or whether you're running a service accommodation. There's too many variables to answer this in one go. So it does work on you have to work it on a case by case basis. If you were to take on a ready-made HMO, just give you an example of the one that I've taken on this week in Dudley. I don't have to actually spend anything on it. I just need to give the first month's rent. So no deposit, because I've said that we're not paying a deposit. I'll pay the first month's rent up front. The property is already a ready-made HMO. Believe it or not, it's already got tenants in place. Yes, they're paying a little bit of a lower rent that I would normally charge, but the fact that we can then go in and uplift those rents is a big benefit. So in actual fact, for me to take that property on, it's cost me £1,000, which is the first month's rent. There have been other scenarios where I've had to go in and do some work to a property where I may have had to spend the best part of £2,000 or £3,000 on works to the property. Believe it or not, there's another scenario where I actually had to spend £29,000 on a property, which is a really big amount. I didn't mind spending it because, believe it or not, I actually got the first 12 months rent free. And that property now generates the best part of, it's a 7-bed HMO where the average rent is around the average rent is about between 500 to 550 a month. So let's just say 500, so that's £3,500 a month, which is equivalent to 42,000 a year. I actually got my money back within the first year, and then the 7-year term kicked in from there on. So it very much depends on the property and what you've negotiated. Now, Jane says, any recording of the 2-day training in case I can't make it for the whole day, please? Yes, Jane. So it will be recorded. So any questions that you've got, you can watch it back. For anyone that purchases the training, you will also have the recording for it as well. So I really hope that that kind of answers you or almost like persuades you to come on the training. This is your last opportunity to actually purchase this training because the workshop is next weekend. So come this time next week, you should be fully armed with everything to allow you to go off and start getting your first deal. Many of you may actually come out of next weekend with your first lot of leads to chase up with on Monday. Is that right, Craig and Ben?
Yes, certainly. Yes, we're going to be calling agents. We're going to be calling landlords. We're going to be researching areas, researching properties, doing the numbers, analysing deals, and we're going to be booking in viewings. So we want to be sourcing deals next weekend, either to take on or to upload onto the app, get them sold and get some cash in the bank.
So like I said, this time next week, you could have your first lot of inquiries. This is your last real opportunity where you can speak to us on this session like this. And then the next time that you're going to be speaking to us is next Saturday or next Sunday at the event in Wolverhampton, whether you attend in person or whether you attend the Zoom session. And off the back of that, we're then going to be able to get you to that point. And as we said very clearly, we want to get you to your first £5,000 within 12 weeks. And it is achievable. But in order for you to do that, you need to take the first step. The first step is to attend the workshop. Second step is to take action. Everything that you hear is things that we've done on a day-by-day basis and a step-by-step basis. And all you got to do is follow those steps. I don't want you to go off and think, oh, I think I can do this better. And as a result, go and try and do something else. I want you to literally follow the step-by-step process to get you to your first deal. Off the back of that, the way that I treat it, it's like riding a bike. When you first jump on a bike, it's going to be a little bit unsteady. You're not sure what to say. You're not sure how to come across. And then slowly but surely, the more calls that you make, the more confident you become. The more confident you become, the better you become. The better you become, the better your pitch will become. The better your pitch will become, the more yeses you will get. And it really is as simple as that. So I want you to be in a position where you're surrounded by people who are going to be pushing you forward to get your first deal over the line. Are there any other questions that you'd like to ask? If so, now is your time to ask. If you do have any other questions, you can reach out by calling my office, which is 01902 773940, or you can email me, arsh@arshellahi.com. And if you've got any questions specific to the workshop that we're holding next weekend. So someone's just said, can we put the links back up? Yes, there we've got the link also in the chat box. You've got the link to click onto as well. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone got any further questions before we sign off for the evening? Craig, Ben, is there anything else that you guys want to say before we close for the evening?
Sure, yes. Just want to say thanks for everybody who's joined the webinar. It's been great fun for us, and we look forward to seeing you next week on the 20th and the 21st. It's going to be an action-packed weekend, and we're really excited about it. If you've got any questions that you want to ask me personally, shoot me a message on Facebook. I'll give you a call. We'll get a call booked in. We'll have a call, and yeah, look forward to seeing you on the weekend.
Okay, so a couple of questions that's come through. So Matt says, what sort of contract would you need to sell and package a deal? Okay, so Matt, generally speaking, you won't really need contracts in place, because if you're going to sell them via the property investor app, we'll take that load off you, and we'll put all that process in place for you. So that's something that we'll go through with you next weekend. And Mark says, would 5K normally mean 5 properties needed? It varies, Mark, because if you find one property like I've got the one in Manchester, it could actually mean one property. It depends on the strategy that you run. If you're running it as a HMO, the cash flow model will be different to what would be running as a service accommodation deal. It all depends on the location and the occupancy level as well. So we'll be running through the different cash flow models. And the one thing I will say is that by utilizing my cash flow calculator, which everyone that attends the course gets, you will very easily be able to identify which deals make money and which don't very quickly, and it saves you a lot of time. So on that note, I really hope that you've enjoyed the session. I really hope that you've enjoyed your Sunday, and I'll speak to you all very soon. And just as a quick reminder, any questions, you give us a call at the office on 01902 773940. And on that note, I wish you all to be safe, well, and happy. And I look forward to speaking to you all very soon. Take care, guys. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night, guys.
Bye.